Hello and welcome to a video on the best build in Hollow Knight Silksong, and it's not even close. Okay, so this is going to contain some spoilers for the end of Act 2, the secret ending of Act 2, and a lot of high completion stuff. So if you haven't gotten your completion percentage yet, or you don't know what I'm talking about when I say secret ending of Act 2, click off, because it's containing some pretty major spoilers. I'll give you a few seconds. 3, 2, 1. Okay. So this is an Act 3 build, and the reason it's an Act 3 build is because it uses the Plasmium gland that you get for completing the quest in the Wormways in Act 3. The Plasmium gland allows you to refill your Plasmium files without having to go back to that guy. Now that's really important for this build because it uses Plasmium-Overdosing. So this is the Plasmium-Overdose Architect's build. And we'll show it here in action. So this is also contains some spoilers for the Sansa-Karak heart in Act 3. So if you want to experience this by yourself, you should probably also click off. Now this is basically the perfect area to show this off because it's a enemy rush. It's a few towers, or a few rooms of enemy ways, and that's basically where this build thrives. So if you're having trouble with this quest, this will definitely carry you. Now the coolest part about this build is it uses Plasmium-Overdosing, which is a hidden mechanic using the Plasmium file. So you have to be able to get more than the amount of Plasmium files that you're holding. So using the Architect's build, we repair our Plasmium files and then keep using them until we become Plasmium overdosed. So let me get a little more soul here and I'll show you this in action. So this build is using Plasmium overdosing, cog flies, tacks, though these can be swappable. Whatever tool you use doesn't actually matter. I use magnetic dice here, but really the only two things you need for this build are upgraded Druid's Eyes and the Plasmium file. Oh, and of course the Plasmium gland. Once you have those, this build is extremely well made. And you can use any tool you want, you can use other blue badges. The great part about this is because you're using Plasmium overdosing, and I'll show you what that does in a second, you don't need to worry about your health as much. You don't have to use binding to heal. So let me take a little bit of damage from these guys. And if you pay attention to my health in the upper left corner, as you can see, it naturally regenerates. So that's great because you can start to use your silk for other things. So what I use my silk for is crafting tools in the middle of battle. So we'll bring out the flies. And you can just start spamming tools like crazy. Because you don't need your silk to heal, all you have to do is spam tool, spam tool, spam tool. And once you start to run out, as you can see I have, use your Architect to make more. And that's the basic cycle of this. And if you take damage, you will regen that damage, but it'll also give you silk because you're using Druid's Eyes. But if say you're in the middle of battle and you have a lot of health nithing like I am right now and you want healing, well, just spam your Plasmium file tools to get back to your health. And because this is a tool, you can make more of them using the Architect. So you can basically have passive regeneration or active healing, both using the Architect. It's absolutely beautiful. It's one of the easiest builds I've ever seen. It absolutely melts people because you're spamming tools and making more tools, which means you can use them to reckless abandon. And you don't have to worry about your silk or health too much. Now, the one thing you do have to worry about is your shell shards. So you can run out of these. Typically, you won't run out of these because you can't make more tools, but even if you start at 800 shell shards, you can pretty quickly run out if you're just spamming tools. So watch that meter, but other than that, have fun. This is just like one of the spammiest builds there is. You can absolutely melt some creatures. And I'll show you here on the boss in a sec. of this area. In fact, the rest of this build is, or the rest of this video is basically just going to be a demonstration of how this build works. And you see I'm being pretty conservative about my tool usage here. You don't need to be. I mean, you have 800 shards, you might as well use 800 shards, right? And let me heal here. Oh. Yeah, cogflies, take care of those, please. Again, great part about this build is you have basically infinite healing, passive and active. Spam for some more cogflies. Alright. You'll never run out of tools until you run out of shards. Oop, took a little bit of damage there. The other thing I like using is... Here, let's spam some more of these guys. And let's heal a little bit. Oh, never mind. That's it. Alright. Between each fight, I can also just wait for my healing to do my natural passive regeneration. So what I usually like using is Pin Badge, because I like using nail arts as well. I also use Magnetic Dice and Long Claw. Though those are, a lot of these are optional, you don't have to use any of these. This build is pretty flexible. So just use whatever you're most comfortable with. Oh, and of course, let's craft more tools before this next battle. So yeah, now we're down 270 tools, so we have to be a little more careful. Or 170 shards. But the pins are a great... I love these pins because they do a lot of damage and they're not too expensive. You get a lot of them every single time you make tools, and they're pretty cheap. Now, I really don't have to be fighting these guys with tools. I am spamming tools just to show this off, but realistically, you can just be using your nail arts, especially because of that passive regeneration. Every combat style is just going to be augmented by this playstyle. And Architect is great because the charge attack on Architect hits 3 times. It does basically the most damage of any crest in the game just because of that charge attack. Let's get a little more healing here. Alright. The other thing is, if you hit a lull in the fight like this, you can just wait for your passive regeneration to do you wonders. But that's kind of boring, so let's continue on. Craft a little bit more. Ooh. This is a part of the tower that I really do not like. So we can just spam some cogflies to deal with this while I just regenerate. Sweet. Throw down some pins. And we'll throw some more cogflies at this guy. Sweet, and we're basically done with this. Okay. Now I am going to back out of this dream world into the real world just to recharge my shards to show you guys what the final fight would look like if you have max shards. Because typically if you're going into a boss fight, you're going to have max shards. Now, the one concerning thing about this build that I do have to point out is that because it burns so many shards, you need to know a great spot in the world to farm rosaries. This build will eat your rosaries like crazy. So make sure you have max shards going into every single battle. And the one cool thing is, because I'm in a memory, I can't really spam my shard bundles, because I can't use items. But if you're in a normal battle, and you start to run out of shards, you can pause your game, go into your menu, and pop some tool shards. Or shard pouches. So essentially, as long as you have 20 shard pouches on you, and, well, you have an 80 shard pouch that's already full, you have, I think that's 2,400 shards at your disposal, which is quite a lot. Which should be pretty much enough to beat any single boss in this game. So if you're struggling with a boss or struggling with an area, for example, this is great for bilewater. Because you have that passive regeneration, you do not have to work about, or you don't have to worry about the bile effect. So here, let me become blue again. That bile effect does not actually matter to you. And again, you have that passive and active regeneration, which means should you ever be low in a battle, just take some time and spam those Plasmium vials. And yeah, don't be afraid to use your nail arts, don't be afraid to spam your tools. There we go. And before this final fight, let's just recharge once again. The other thing you can do is, if you're going into a fight, well, you can take a little bit of damage for yourself. Because you have that Druid's Eye, any single time you take damage, you gain a little bit of silk. So if you take a little bit of damage, that's alright. In fact, it's actually kind of good because you have that passive regeneration while also gaining more silk. Let's throw down some spikes for this guy. So I am taking a lot of damage here, so what I'm going to do is wait till on natural regeneration and then spam some Plasmium vials, or spam my cog flies. Try to get as much pins as I can onto the battlefield, as many places. Now I think there is a limit to the amount of pins you can have on the battlefield, so you can't be spamming it too much. And I'm starting to run out of tools, so I'll just take a second here, make more tools. The great thing about this is you don't have to actively be hunting down the boss and trying to make him take damage. If you have cog flies and pins, they kind of do the work for you. Oh, and I need to heal here. pretty badly. So I just find a moment in this battle to spam some more Plasmium Vials, while my Cogflies do the rest of the work. Spam some more pins, and I didn't even need to touch this guy. He just killed himself. And that's the beauty of this build. It is by far the strongest build I've ever seen in this game. Because it turns you from a damage dealer to an endurance maxer, right? You don't have to be chasing down the enemy to do damage. You just have to survive while your tools do the work. So if you're having trouble with a boss or an area, try this. Anyways, thank you for watching. I will show the build one more time. And good luck out there. So here we go. Plasmium Vial on the Architect Crest using the Druid's Eyes. Everything else is interchangeable. I like Long Claw, I like Pin Badge, I like Magnetic Dice. Cogfly and Tax are just the most passive tools, but I've also had a lot of success with Sting Shard. So Sting Shard is also a pretty passive tool. A Cogwork Wheel can kind of work. I haven't found too much of use for this, but those passive tools really synergize well with this build. So yeah, good luck out there and have fun.